Imagine sitting in your aircraft in the run-up bay, just about ready to taxi, when out of the blue, your aircraft starts to shudder and shake and the left wingtip lifts off the ground, all because of someone nearby doing an engine run. How's it happen and how can we prevent it? And how can we also position ourselves safely when using run-up bays? In this episode, I'm going to talk about exactly that, the critical importance of run-up bay safety and situational awareness for all pilots and ground crews. All that and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Good morning, 7614, 95 Mallow 7 POB with altitude.
Coordinating, Halen, I'm running bank, power, bank pressure rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there.
Set by star 9000, 1013, K5 25.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 151 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. The podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. I'm your host, Trent Robinson. G'day, how are you? Well, thank you for the great response for those of you who decided to take up the special offer and come on board for the Patreon membership. Had about another 17 of you join, which was just wonderful. And I truly appreciate all that support. If anyone else wants to jump on board, there's a special 150th episode discount of 50% off either 1 month or the first year membership. All you have to do is jump on to patreon.com/Flight Training Australia, enter the code episode 150, episode 150, and the savings will be yours. And the money will go all towards helping support this podcast, the YouTube channel, and the projects that I'm working on to bring to you guys every week, which I know you all dearly love. So from less than a coffee a month, you can be helping me out massively, and every dollar counts. And thank you to everyone for that. Watching the news, more tragedy. I believe we've now lost 17 deaths, 17 aviators and passengers this year in Australian aviation incidents and accidents this year, which is just 17 far too many. So again, as always, my heart goes out to family, friends and colleagues, and we just got to make sure that we just do everything we can to ensure our standards do not fall, our attitudes to our flying doesn't drop, and the push to not have repeat events is just so important. Today's episode, as you heard in the intro, is not an accident exactly, but it's an incident, and it's one that's happened to me as well, which I'll go into. And that is coming about quite possibly because I'm seeing a lot of unfamiliarity with how to operate in a run-up bay, or in Darwin, as we call it, the passing bay, and where to position the aircraft and all that. And I'm really interested in your guys' feedback. I've come from Jandakot. We have run-up bays there. I know they're in Moorabbin where I've been. I've flown pretty much everywhere, and there seems to be run-up bays in most places. The student I'm with now, Will, g'day mate. In Canberra, they don't have any there, so there's a bit of a problem, but usually there's a taxiway or something. But usually it's a little spot off to the side that you can do your run-ups. But the way we enter these run-up bays and position the aircraft is really important. One thing that seems to be hot on the topic of flight school delivery is always want to park into wind. And that's obviously to do with some airflow coming through the engines. Now, the reality is when the engine's started, and if we're sitting on the ground for a short period of time, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, especially if the wind's light. If it's stronger, then definitely, because then you've got the wind blowing behind you. It's blowing up the exhaust. It doesn't allow for the cooling to escape as well. It starts to buffet all the controls and things. So there's definitely a consideration there. But pointing in the wind is the default position. But what doesn't seem to be discussed is watch where you're pointing. Now, ask any chief engineer how many times they've lost it at a pilot who's taxied across their hangar, swung the tail around and blasted it full of crap. And I'm sure you've either witnessed or been the recipient of such a blast yourself, excuse the pun. And these are the sort of things that we also need to be very, very mindful of. It's not just where we're pointing, but where is the tail pointing and where's all that prop slipstream and prop wash going? And is it impacting anything? Right where I've got the Barron hanger, we've got a couple of maintenance sheds. So the way we approach, I also don't want my hanger filled with crap. So the way we go about that is also very, very important, and not blowing stuff over and all those sort of things. But we do need to be mindful of where we're pointing and what we're doing. So my story was many moons ago back in WA. I was in the Tiger Moth, and probably the lightest aeroplane on the field, just about, at least at the time anyway. And I was sitting there doing my run-ups when a Seminole came up next to me, pointed their tail virtually right at me directly into the wind, which wasn't really going to work because I was where I was because other aircraft were there and they slotted into that spot. They didn't do their turn very well, and pointing at me was not a consideration at all. They then, of course, proceeded to do their run-ups, and I literally started lifting off the ground, shuffling and scuffing off the ground. I had to jump on the radio and shout at them and tell them to power down and stop. And it was very, very much very close to an incident and that aircraft being damaged. And that's essentially what's happened in this incident in Moorabbin, which has been on the ATSB website, where a 152 was sitting behind a Piper Navajo, again doing high-power engine runs, and the Cessna actually tipped up off the ground, and the tip hit the ground, wingtip hit the ground and got damage. No one was hurt or anything, but certainly would have got their attention, and just really highlights the importance of being situationally aware of where you're positioning yourself in the passing bay or the run-up bay. Now, many run-up bays will have potentially yellow lines or markings, white, whatever, and they can't clearly point into wind all day, every day. They may well be lined up on an angle to the duty runway to allow aircraft to stack into place, but the line itself is there as a guide, all right? It's not there as a 100% have to follow that. Once common sense has a chance to kick in, you can see where you need to be, position the aircraft on a 45-degree angle to the run-up bay so that no one can really pull in behind you and get dirt and stones and prop wash, whatever else, blown back over you. But sometimes the run-up bay that you use is not necessarily for the duty runway. The wind's potentially coming from behind you, for example. So now you're sort of positioned or put in this position where you might need to put your tail pointing back behind you. Now, that's potentially blowing right across the taxiway, which can be a hazard to aircraft taxiing past. Again, unlikely to do too much damage at that sort of distance, but all depends on how close everything is. All right. But like I said, for the short time, you're going to be actually doing some run-ups, and most likely the short time you're going to be in that passing bay or run-up bay. I would suggest that just positioning the most convenient flow to get in and out of that run-up bay would be the best option to take, and not worry so much about where the wind's coming from unless it's strong and significant, in which case that certainly has to take a little bit of precedence. All right. So just think about these things when you are doing run-ups. Always go to the furthest point into the run-up bay so that when others approach, they can stack in behind you. Again, there might be two lines there, but you could potentially fit 4 or 5 aircraft in there if everyone plays the game. If someone next to you leaves and you're still going, if it's practical and not going to interrupt your flows, consider just repositioning and shuffling up the line a little bit. Just helps other aircraft come in and everybody get their business done and go do the fun part, which is the flying. All right, so hopefully that will give you a little bit of an idea of what to do. But I do know from a lot of the training that I'm doing and feedback from heads of operations, they're a bit dismayed as well as to the things they're seeing pilots doing in the run-up bays and how they're positioning the aircraft or going about their run-ups. So just think about where you are, what you're doing, and set yourself up ready to go as soon as you can without wasting time and interfering with others trying to use the same area. All right, guys, just a nice little short one this week. I'm getting back into the instructor proficiency or professional development program that we're doing. 2 more sessions to go. If you want to check that out and catch up on the last few episodes we've done, you can do that at courses.flighttrainingaustralia.com.au, and you can just create an account there. You can grab the previous episodes. They're only $49 each. And we have stalling this week on Wednesday night, spins and some accident reports that we're going to be looking into, as well as circuit work and FPCs the following week. So feel free to jump on those live if you wish. You can also jump on, as I said, onto the courses website and purchase those previous ones. The seminar that we ran with Rich Stoll in Caboolture in September is also there, and definitely recommend jumping on and checking that out. Like, Rich had some fantastic stuff to say, an absolute bargain price there as well. So if you want to get in there, do that. Check all that. There'll be more things coming. LASO training's on there now. That only really works if you're going to come up and finish it. It's not the full LASO qualification itself. You need to do a practical as well. But there'll be more things evolving on that website as time goes on. All right, everybody, have a fantastic week. Please stay safe. Remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.